The movie starts by showing ancient China, around 200 years BC, when the land was divided into 7 states that had been continuously at war for the last 500 years. In the state of Qin, King Aisei was ousted by his younger brother after years of conflict. Fortunately, Aisei encounters Xin, a slave who dreams of becoming a great general, who ultimately helps the king in reclaiming his throne by uniting various tribes in the Qin region. Several years later, as Aisei is about to rest, he is suddenly attacked by assassins who manage to infiltrate the palace. Aisei tries to resist with his limited sword skills until the guards arrive, including Xin, who eventually faces the assassins alone. As Xin begins to struggle against the formidable opponents, Karyoten comes to help, allowing Xin to defeat the 2 assassins. Before taking his last breath, one of the assassins threatens that the assassin clan will destroy Qin. Shortly after, a guard informs Aisei of an impending attack by the Wei state, signaling imminent war. Despite Xin's role in hipping the king's rage in his throne, he cannot be appointed directly as a general. Instead, he must begin as a soldier, alongside fellow peasants, who will advance to the front lines. In the war, the Qin state will be led by General Hyoko, who is the junior of the great general Oki. Meanwhile, Xin, who is still a slave, will become an infantry soldier with his childhood friends, Bito and Bihei, who are from the same area. Upon reuniting, Xin tells them that he has saved Aisei, earning recognition from the king. However, Bito and Bihei, considering Xin's tale far-fetched, are taken aback when they see him acquainted with a war commander, questioning how a slave like Xin could be acquainted with such a figure. Once all the infantry soldiers gathered, they were divided into several small groups. Xin found himself in a group with his 2 friends and a quiet girl named Kyokai, whom they initially mistook for a man due to her face cover. Meanwhile, the Wei state's army, under the command of General Kyokai, known as the 7 Fire Dragons, had prepared themselves. Kyokai was notorious for his ruthlessness, particularly towards the Qin state. With hundreds of thousands of troops assembled, Kyokai had seized control of 2 hills overlooking the battlefield to gain an advantage. Returning to Xin, he was surprised to learn that he would be led by Bakugo Xin, a war commander known for his cruelty but lacking in war strategy. As the war drums sounded, signaling the start of the battle, Xin, along with other Qin soldiers, received no instructions from Bakugo Xin. Undeterred, Xin dashed to the front lines, disrupting the enemy's defensive formation with his bold attack. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by Xin's assault, other Qin soldiers breached the enemy lines. Although General Kyokai viewed Xin's actions as reckless, they proved effective in decimating enemy forces, eliminating one of their commanders, and forcing the Wei soldiers to retreat. Upon learning of their defeat, a vice-general from the Wei state swiftly commanded his troops to deploy war chariots armed with shields and weaponry, catching Xin and his fellow soldiers off guard. Despite encountering strong resistance, Hyoko instructed his troops to maintain their positions without sending reinforcements, seemingly sacrificing Xin and others on the front lines. As Xin and his group found themselves cornered by enemy attacks, Kyokai proposed a strategy of using fallen soldiers' bodies to construct a barricade. Once the barricade was set up, Xin took on the task of carrying a flag to lure the war chariots towards them. With limited visibility due to thick dust on the battlefield, the enemy soldiers failed to notice the pile of corpses in front of them, allowing the war chariots to be easily toppled. Unexpectedly, this was the reason Hyoko chose to hold back his forces, realizing that the Qin forces were outnumbered by the Wei state. If the general forced more troops down, they would lose quickly. Upon hearing reports of resilient farmers, Hyoko saw it as a glimmer of hope that could potentially turn the tide of the war if he could maximize that small hope. Unfortunately, this made it difficult for the infantry soldiers as they continued to fight until nightfall without any assistance from General Hyoko. Exhausted and forced into hiding, Xin and his comrades were eventually discovered by the enemy, compelling Xin to confront them alone. Witnessing Xin overwhelmed, Kyokai finally intervened, employing her lethal techniques that resembled singing and dancing. With her skills, Kyokai managed to dispatch numerous enemy soldiers single-handedly, although she eventually began to struggle as she ran out of breath. In the midst of the chaos, Scene and the others, who initially mistook Kyokai for a man, were astonished when her face cover was lifted, revealing her true identity as a woman. Faced with an increasingly impossible to resist, Scene and Kyokai made the decision to jump into the river. After the situation calmed down, Kyokai revealed her motive for joining the Qin State's war was to avenge her sister's death. She confessed that she belonged to an assassin clan, where candidates from various tribes fought for leadership, with only one survivor becoming the clan leader. Unfortunately, Kyokai's sister entered the candidacy and lost, falling victim to her rival, now in the Wei State. Unable to enter the Wei State directly, Kyokai opted to join the war, hoping that a Qin victory would grant her entry to seek revenge. Upon hearing Kyokai's story, Scene empathized with her sorrow, encouraging her not to abandon her sister's dream, much like Scene's own dream of becoming a great general. The following day, as the war resumed, Scene regrouped with other surviving infantry soldiers who had taken refuge on a hill overnight. Despite some Qin soldiers feeling hopeless at the sight of numerous Wei combat battalions, Scene spotted an opportunity to strike the enemy's defense corps nearby. Shortly after, Scene led them to attack the hill where the Wei State Army's vice general was stationed, just as the Qin army was being bombarded by the Wei forces on the battlefield. Scene's actions actually made Hiyoko realize there was hope for Qin's victory, so he immediately ordered all troops to join the battle. He even asked Bakuko-Scene to assist Scene's group attacking the hill area. The sudden arrival of reinforcements from the Qin state seemed to overpower the opposing forces. Meanwhile, Scene, leading Bakuko-Scene's main forces, succeeded in breaching the enemy's final defense line on the hill. Bakuko-Scene then instructed Scene to accompany the cavalry forces in attacking the Wei State's vice general, while the remaining infantry held off enemy soldiers from pursuing them. Though reluctant to leave his comrades, Scene trusted Kyokai to protect them and followed the commander's orders. While Kyokai and the others held back the enemy, Scene and Bakuko-Scene's troops confronted the enemy's archer units, capable of decimating half of Bakuko-Scene's forces in one attack. Utilizing his ability to anticipate arrow movements, Scene launched a surprise attack on the archers, impressing the Wei vice general. At the same time, Bakuko-Scene made a desperate move towards the vice general's position. Seizing an opportunity when the vice general approached, Bakuko-Scene deliberately sacrificed himself to draw the vice general closer, allowing him to fatally wound the vice general with a small knife. With the vice general's demise, Scene and the Qin forces celebrated their capture of the hill. Unfortunately, the war was not over as they saw tens of thousands of Wei troops emerging from behind the hill under the direct command of Kyokai. Although outnumbered, Scene's actions and those of other infantry soldiers managed to clear a path for Hiyoko's forces to launch a direct attack on Kyokai's troops. As the Qin forces still worried over the impending battle, General Oki and his troops suddenly surged forward, effortlessly dismantling the enemy's front defense lines before joining Scene and his comrades on the hill. Oki's appearance on the battlefield wasn't to assist the Qin forces, but to observe the battle's progression. Yet the presence of a great general seemed to worry the Wei State forces, because if Oki intervened in the battle, the Qin state would have a greater chance of winning. In that moment, Oki tasked Scene with learning from Hiyoko's tactics, emphasizing the general's reliance on instinct over reason. This was evidenced by Hiyoko's decision to withhold his forces until a certain X factor appeared, signaling the opportune moment to turn the tide of battle. Oki cited Hiyoko's daring move to directly assault Kyokai's troops as a demonstration of this reliance on the elusive X factor for victory. Meanwhile, Kyokai, the Wei State's formidable general, countered Hiyoko's attack by dispatching cavalry units to encircle and eliminate the Qin forces from behind. Oki added that according to military strategy, Hiyoko's attack would not yield results, but the outcome still depended on the X factor present on the battlefield. After hearing to Oki's insightful explanation, Scene, inspired by the general's words, requested permission to join Hiyoko's forces in combat against the enemy. Witnessing Scene's unwavering determination, Oki provided him with a horse so that he could swiftly join the Qin forces, eager to see if Xin could bring about a change in the unfavorable war situation for the Qin forces. Without hesitation, Xin charged into the battlefield, confronting the enemy fleet attempting to attack Hyoko's troops. Drawing from his past experiences, Xin targeted one of the Wei state's war chariot fleets, knowing that these war chariots had weaknesses he could exploit. Despite the chariot's capacity to carry more soldiers, Xin noticed their restricted mobility compared to cavalry units. Exploiting this weakness, Xin devised a plan to dismantle a frontline chariot fleet, triggering a chain reaction causing subsequent chariots to collide and crumble. With Xin's strategy, he managed to incapacitate a portion of the Wei state's cavalry forces, thereby confirming that he was the X factor mentioned by Oki, because Xin's actions facilitated Hyoko and his troops to pass through several enemy defense barricades until the general finally faced off against Kyokai, his longtime adversary. As the two generals confronted each other, they decided for a duel, halting the ongoing battle. When all troops ceased fighting, they approached each other on their horses to engage in combat, and in the duel, Hyoko appeared to overpower Kyokai after the Qin general successfully decapitated Kyokai. With Goukei's defeat, the war was won by the Wei state as all the Wei soldiers cheered joyfully over their victory. Shortly after, Xin bid farewell to Kyokai, who planned to continue her mission of infiltrating the Wei state, while he returned to the palace to meet with Ise and Karyoten. Throughout the war, Ise and Karyoten had been studying the strategies employed by the kingdom's war strategists against the Wei state. At that moment, Karyoten announced her decision to participate in the upcoming battle as a war strategist, contributing to the war's direction. Meanwhile, impressed by Xin's battlefield prowess, the top military officials of the Qin state recommended him for promotion to the rank of war commander. Thus, Xin succeeded in making history as a slave who rose to become a battalion commander in just one battle. In the film's conclusion, Minister Ryofui, accompanied by his trusted associates General Mobu and General Soheikun, meets with Ise. Ryofui is known to be Ise's uncle and is suspected by the palace as the one who infiltrated mercenaries to assassinate the king, because Ryofui also harboring the ambitions for the throne of the Qin state. His presence at the palace suggests his courage in confronting Ise directly, despite rumors swirling around him. Ryofui seems confident that Ise lacks the resolve to challenge him, especially since he has gathered considerable power to resist the Qin king. Moral lesson from the story: if you ever find yourself fighting with friends against war chariots armed with shields, just remember, don't forget to bring your friends that good at singing and dancing. They might just save the day.